Barry, I want to say this very frankly. I think we have thought about this. We made steps with it when Harry Belafonte and Sidney and I started helping the African students, and they've talked about it on a number of occasions. I've talked with Dr. Have you? I know you've had Dr. Gardner Taylor on this program.
No.
You
Oh,
never
no.
had him?
No.
You ought to get him on.
No, I
You
thought
ought
I'd
to-
had everyone, but
you
I
ought
missed
to,
him.
this is Barry, in my opinion, the outstanding Negro minister around. A fabulous man, and I tell you, we are thinking about organization, trying to get people to recognize that they have an obligation. And as I asked Dr. Taylor, if we get this thing going, you would be the man that I'd like to see to head it up. This is the kind of a man that I'd like to see in Congress. I think, however, he would be wasted in some extent in Congress because of his tremendous drive and his following that he has. Maybe he could do, I don't know enough about politics to say he would be wasted in Congress. Maybe I better take that back. But this is the kind of respect I have for Gardner Taylor. I think this is the outstanding Negro around. He's president of the Protestant Council. He's on the school board. He is pastor over at the Concord Baptist Church. When you talk to him, when you listen to him, he impresses me like Hubert Humphrey does when he talks. He got up before the Guardian Society out the other night and spoke out there, and I said, this is a sincere dedication of a man who wants to see things develop. You ought to get him on and probe him.
We have made a note of it. Jackie, I want to bring back Mr. Alexander Evans in the closing moments of the program because I think we have a report from Railford, Florida. I want to again compliment you on your awareness of everything that happens in the marketplace, and I'm very proud that we're on the same team.
Thanks, Barry. My pleasure.
I never thought I'd be on the Dodgers, but here I am, a bat boy. Good luck to you.
Thank you, and keep up your good work.
Thank
Barry.
you. Jackie Robinson, ladies and gentlemen, just back from Wisconsin and a stumping tour with Senator Hubert Humphrey. Ladies and gentlemen, if you tuned in earlier, excuse me, I was talking with Alexander Evans of Elizabeth, New Jersey, a man who escaped from Railford Penitentiary in Railford, Florida, just outside of Jacksonville, some 32 years ago. Mr. Evans had turned himself over to the management, the executive side of WMCA, and asked that they help him and his family, while he in turn would be delivered to the officials, the prison officials of Florida, to serve out the remainder of a 2-year term from which he escaped back in 1928. During the course of our discussion in the first hour, we established the fact, and it happened while we were on the air, that the Federal Bureau of Investigation was not interested in Alexander Evans. They did not have a want or pickup order on him. And Mr. Evans, while I've been on the air with Jackie Robinson, I wonder if you've had further information. I know you've been in the control room.
I was just told by Mr. Hamilton that they're waiting for the prison official left his home in Tallahassee with his secretary and went to his office and probably are there now checking the records. So the Jacksonville papers, they also did check the morgue in the Jacksonville papers and give them a report of the incident, which I mentioned that I never knew how many escaped at the time. It was 7. There were 14 in the van. Only 7 of them escaped and 4 were recaptured shortly after. So that's all the knowledge I have. Mr. Hamilton just told me a few minutes ago, and they're still waiting a report from Tallahassee, the director of prisons.
Wow. I also pointed out to the radio audience that all of this was being pre-recorded. It is now about 6:45 in the evening of March the 15th, Tuesday. And the reason why I pointed out the pre-recording is because when I first met Mr. Evans this afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Federal Bureau of Investigation had been notified shortly before that time that he had come to WMCA and told his story. We in turn turned to the FBI and asked if he was wanted, and then they subsequently, along about 5:30, 5:45, said no. And so, Mr. Evans, we are sitting now and simply waiting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it seemed to be.
Did they give you any further information from the Jacksonville papers as to
No,
how they...
it was just a moment ago, Mr. Hamilton just told me that they did contact the paper, and there was 7. I'd always been curious to know just how many of them. I was the second one out, and I never knew until now how many escaped at the time.
And no way of knowing what happened to the 7 who were picked up?
No, it said that 4 were picked up.
Oh,
They
4.
didn't mention the other 2. I was the
Would they,
seventh one.
they would be given additional terms for having escaped, right?
I don't know what the law was at that time down there. I don't think they did. I remember of fellows escaping from road gangs down there and being brought back to the prison that I never heard of them getting additional time at that time.
Well, Mr. Evans, I say that we have nothing to do but wait. Suppose we turn off the equipment and you and I sit around and wait until we have word from Tallahassee, and I hope that before this broadcast is over, we can give the listeners the final chapter, which we don't know.
That's a very important thing, too. As I told you, I come down here prepared to go back, and what you've told me already with the FBI not wanting me has been a very great load off my mind, but I can hope.
We will hope together.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, in the offices here at radio station WMCA in New York, we'll place a telephone call to Mr. Sinclair, who's the superintendent of prisons, and he's now at Railford, Florida. The following is an account of that conversation. I see. Mr. Sinclair, then I am to tell him that he's a free man.
So far as I don't think we'd want him, no, sir.
All right. I want to thank you very, very much for your cooperation.
But I want to tell you how much we appreciate your cooperation and help, because a lot of times we do want these people, but in this particular case, I don't believe that the Division of Corrections would want to bring him back.
I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good luck. Goodbye. Well, Mr. Evans, you've heard the conversation by Mr. Sinclair at Railford Penitentiary in Florida. What's your reaction?
I hardly know what to say, sir. It's my feeling is of gratitude to all you folks here, and also gratitude to the people in Florida. Primarily, my thanks and appreciation is for Mr. Strauss and his entire staff here, and the trouble that you, Mr. Gray, and Mr. Hamilton, and all of you have taken to do this for me. It's my vocabulary is too limited to even talk about it. You have no idea of what the measure of my gratitude is. I'm shaking. I can't talk too good, sir.
I understand, Mr. Evans. And what do you intend to do now?
Well, I intend to go home and start looking for a job that I'll be able to do that doesn't require too much physical.
And you no longer have to worry about having your fingerprints taken. It seems to me back a while you said you wanted to be a night watchman.
That's right. I had to turn down a job a short time ago because I didn't dare have my fingerprints taken.
I wonder, Mr. Evans, if there's anything that we might do here by way of recommendation. Perhaps this might very well lead into such a position.
I'd be eternally grateful if you could, sir, because at my age, it's the age alone is more than 2 strikes on you when you go batting for a job.
Well, Mr. Evans, I am delighted, truly delighted, that through these facilities we could do something. It seems rather impossible that we met each other at 4:30 this afternoon, and I know that you came here feeling that you were going to prison tonight, that you were going to sleep in a cage tonight somewhere. And here it is, 7 minutes after 8 in the evening, and in just about 3.5 hours, through the miracle of the beeper telephone and our wonderful attorney, Mr. Leonard Sand, and Bill Hamilton, and all of the engineers, and just everyone working on it, in 3.5 hours you've discovered that you're a free man, and tonight your wife's going to be very surprised to find you at home. I wish you good luck.
I'm truly grateful. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been talking on a touch-and-go basis today with Mr. Alexander Evans. If you've been listening since the top of the broadcast, you realize that Mr. Evans thought that he was a wanted man, wanted by the Railford officials of Railford Penitentiary in Florida, near Jacksonville. And we have discovered that neither the FBI nor the State of New York nor the penitentiary officials in Railford want him after 32 years since his escape from Railford, and tonight Alexander Evans is a free man. There's little for me to add here except to say thanks to all of the people who have been with us on this afternoon of investigation and telephonic and radio communication. And to you, the listener, good night and God bless you.
The program you heard was taped. 2 hours after it had been completed, Alexander T. Evans was taken into custody by the New York City Police Department pending official verification by the Florida authorities that they will not extradite. No sooner done than said on WMCA News. Time now for the latest. Then we invite you to join us on the Night Watch. It's 1 o'clock.
WMCA, first with the news.
The 1 o'clock edition, Sherwood reporting. New York weather headline, mostly fair weather today and mild. Full WMCA weather scope follows the news. New York, a man who said he'd been running away from an unfinished prison term in Florida for 32 years gave himself up today to WMCA radio. As you just heard on WMCA's Barry Gray Show, 59-year-old Alexander Evans, who's been living in Elizabeth, New Jersey, said he escaped from the Florida State Prison at Railford in 1928. After serving 7 months of a 2-year term for forgery. New York police are holding Evans now as a fugitive, but in Railford, Prison Superintendent DeWitt Sinclair said he doubts that Florida authorities will insist on getting him back after all these years. The New York City Police Department will wait pending official verification. Chicago. The weather double-crossed the weathermen in the Great Plains. The heavy storm expected to sweep eastward into the Appalachians did an about-face and returned to dump 10 inches of snow in Kansas and Iowa. In Kansas City, the total snow depth reached 20 inches, 2 inches more than the average for an entire year in that area. Washington. Senate Republican campaign chairman Barry Goldwater has urged the United States to withdraw recognition of the Khrushchev government. The Arizona Republican also blasted the administration's foreign policy and charged the present foreign aid program has in most cases made America weaker. In a Senate speech, Goldwater called for rejection of proposals for a permanent ban on testing of nuclear weapons. Albany. New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller says he has not endorsed any individual for the Republican presidential nomination. Rockefeller, who withdrew as a possible candidate last December, was asked about reports he would campaign for Vice President Nixon. The governor referred to his December statement, in which he said he would support the nominees in the program of the Republican Party in 1960. San Antonio. The executive director of the San Antonio Council of Churches says businessmen in that Texas city have taken steps to head off anti-segregation demonstrations. The Reverend C. Don Bow explained that the businessmen agreed to integrate their lunch counters. Up to now, there have been no demonstrations in San Antonio, although they have occurred in other Texas cities. Orangeburg, South Carolina. Some 400 Negro students were arrested in Orangeburg during a series of segregation protests. Police and firemen used tear gas and fire hoses to break up several demonstrations. 80 more students were arrested in incidents at Rock Hill and Columbia, South Carolina. Santa Monica, California. A California federal judge reveals that 16-year-old daughter of actress Lana Turner has been put in a county school for girls. Cheryl Crane was made a ward of the court after the fatal stabbing of Johnny Stompanato in 1958. She has been living with her maternal grandmother. And the only reason given for the surprise move was that the Juvenile Probation Department recommended it. New York. Federal Judge Frederick Ryan here in New York has reserved decision until today on a defense motion of mistrial in the income tax evasion case of Representative Adam Clayton Powell. Powell is accused of evading payments of some $3,000 in 1951 and 52. Downeyville, California. Larry Lord Motherwell was convicted in Downeyville for the murder of Mrs. Pearl Putney. The jury returned the verdict after 9 hours of deliberation. Logan, West Virginia. Rescue crews are searching for 5 remaining men still missing in a mine for fear that they'll only find dead men. The bodies of 13 of the 18 missing miners have been found thus far. That's the news. The weather scope and headlines follow this message.
That's the sound of the space age, and you can become a part of it. This is Herb Oscar Anderson with a special word for high school graduates. You know, only the Air Force has most of its men working on space-age projects and in allied fields. See your local United States Air Force recruiter for complete details.
Now checking our WMCA weather eye through that Wednesday morning sky, it's mostly fair, followed by increasing cloudiness during the day. Our high 35 to 40. Cloudy Wednesday night, chance of snow developing, low in the 30s. Thursday, St. Patrick's Day. Cloudy with some rain or snow, little change in temperature. WMCA readings 36 degrees. Humidity 48%. Our wind is north at 6 miles an hour. The headlines. A man who's been running away from an unfinished prison sentence in Florida gave himself up to radio station WMCA. Group of businessmen in San Antonio, Texas, reported to have agreed to integrate their lunch counters. Tear gas and fire hoses used at Orangeburg, South Carolina, to break up Negro demonstration. That's the latest edition from the 3 news services and the 4 corners of the world. Next news at any moment, as it happens. Next WMCA newscast at 1:30.